The afternoon sun was beating down hard on the fancy shopping district, making the pavement shimmer with heat. Victoria pulled her bright red Ferrari into a parking spot right in front of the main entrance. The engine made that deep, powerful sound that only expensive cars make, and a few people walking by turned their heads to look. She'd earned this car. Every single penny. 10 years of working 16-hour days, missing family gatherings, sacrificing weekends, all to build her real estate business from nothing. Now, at 46 years old, she had the house, the car, the lifestyle she'd always dreamed about. And she wasn't about to let anyone mess with what she'd worked so hard for. Victoria checked her makeup in the mirror one last time, smoothed down her silk blouse, and grabbed her designer purse from the passenger seat. She had exactly 45 minutes to grab a gift for her business partner's retirement party and make it across town for a meeting with potential investors. Everything had to be perfect. Everything always had to be perfect. As she opened the door and stepped out onto the hot pavement, her heels clicking against the ground, she saw him. A teenage boy, maybe 15 or 16 years old, standing way too close to her car. His hand was actually reaching out toward the hood, his fingers just inches from touching the paint. Victoria's heart jumped. She'd heard the stories. Scratches, dings, kids taking selfies and leaning against expensive cars without permission. Just last month, her friend had found a dent in her Mercedes from someone's shopping cart. "Hey, get away from there!" Victoria's voice came out sharper than she'd intended, but she didn't care. The boy jumped back like he'd been shocked, his eyes going wide. I'm sorry, I didn't mean," he stammered, nearly tripping over his own feet as he backed away. Now that she got a better look at him, Victoria could see he was just a kid. Tall and lanky, all arms and legs, like he hadn't quite grown into his body yet. His jeans were worn at the knees, not the fashionable kind of worn you paid extra for, but the real kind that came from actual use. His sneakers had seen better days, and his t-shirt, while clean, was faded from too many washes. But it was his hands that caught her attention. Dark stains on his fingers, grease or oil maybe, ground into the creases of his skin. "Do you have any idea how much this car costs?" Victoria walked around to where he was standing, positioning herself between him and her Ferrari like a mother protecting her child. "Kids like you think you can just touch whatever you want with no respect for other people's property." The boy's face went red. A small group of shoppers had stopped to watch, and Victoria could see phones being pulled out. Good. Maybe if enough people saw this, kids would think twice before messing with cars that didn't belong to them. "Ma'am, I really wasn't going to touch it," the boy said, his voice cracking slightly. "I was just looking. I've been studying cars, and I've never seen a Ferrari this close before. The 488 model is—" "I don't care what model it is or what you've been studying," Victoria cut him off, fishing her phone out of her purse. "You were way too close, and those hands of yours are covered in who knows what. Do you know what it costs to fix paint damage on a Ferrari? More than most people make in 6 months. The boy looked down at his hands, then quickly shoved them into his pockets. "I know, ma'am. I'm careful. I work at an auto shop, so I know how to—" "An auto shop?" Victoria let out a harsh laugh. "Well, that explains the grease. But this isn't some Honda Civic you can mess around with. This is a precision machine." "I know that," the boy said quietly.
"That's why I was being careful not to touch it." Victoria wasn't listening anymore.
She was scrolling through her phone looking for the number for mall security. She'd had enough of this conversation. The kid needed to learn a lesson about boundaries and respect. "Ma'am, please, I really am sorry if I worried you." The boy tried again. "My name is—" "I don't need to know your name," Victoria said, still focused on her phone. "I just need you to be somewhere else when security gets here." The boy's shoulders slumped, and for just a second, Victoria felt a tiny pinch of guilt. But she pushed it away. She'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much to let people walk all over her or her belongings. The world was tough, and kids needed to learn that early. She was about to hit the call button when a strange sound made her freeze. It was coming from her car. A sort of sputtering, coughing noise that definitely shouldn't be there. Then came a sound like a kettle whistling, high and urgent. "What the—" Victoria spun around to look at her Ferrari. The boy had taken several more steps back, but his expression had changed from embarrassed to concerned. The sputtering got louder, and then Victoria saw it. A thin stream of white vapor starting to curl up from under the hood. Not a lot at first, just a little wisp, but growing thicker by the second. "No, no, no!" Victoria rushed to the front of the car, forgetting all about security and the boy and everything else. Her beautiful car, her pride and joy, was smoking. Actual smoke was coming out of it. She yanked on the hood release, her hands shaking slightly. The hood popped up, and a cloud of hot vapor billowed out, making her cough and step back. Through the steam, she could see the complex machinery of the engine. All those expensive parts she didn't really understand but knew cost a fortune. "This can't be happening," she muttered, checking her watch. 38 minutes until her meeting. Not today. Please, not today. She pulled out her phone again, ready to call her mechanic, but her hands were shaking. The closest Ferrari dealership was 40 minutes away, and that was without traffic. Even if they could send someone immediately, she'd miss her meeting. 6 months of work, 6 months of courting these investors, and it would all go down the drain because her car decided to break down at the worst possible moment. "Ma'am?" The boy's voice was hesitant, but something in his tone made Victoria look up. He'd moved closer again, but this time he wasn't looking at the car with admiration. He was looking at it with the focused expression of someone trying to solve a problem. "I think I know what's wrong." Victoria wanted to tell him to get lost, to mind his own business, but desperation made her pause. "What?" "That's not engine fire smoke," the boy said, pointing carefully at the vapor without touching anything. "That's coolant. Steam from coolant, actually. See how it's white, not gray or black? And smell it, it's got that sweet chemical smell." Victoria sniffed and realized he was right. It did smell different from regular smoke. "Your water pump probably failed," the boy continued, leaning in slightly to look at the engine. "If the seal broke, the coolant leaks out, the engine can't cool properly, and when you shut it off after driving, all that built-up heat has nowhere to go. That's why it's steaming now and not when you were on the road. The air moving through the grill was keeping it just cool enough." Victoria stared at him. "How could you possibly know that?" The boy finally looked at her instead of the engine. "I told you, ma'am. I work at an auto shop. Rodriguez Auto Shop over on Maple Street. I've been working there after school for almost 2 years now. Mr. Rodriguez, he's been teaching me about engines, all kinds. High-performance ones especially because those are his favorite." "You're a kid," Victoria said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "You work at an auto shop?" "I'm 17, the boy said, standing up straighter. "And yeah, I know I don't look like much, but I'm good at this. Really good. Mr. Rodriguez says I've got a natural feel for it. I was actually looking at your car because I just finished reading the entire service manual for the 488 model last week. It's got this amazing twin-turbo V8 that—" He stopped himself, seeming to realize he was getting off track. "Sorry, point is I know this car, and I think I can help." Victoria looked at the smoking engine, then at her watch, then at the boy's earnest face. Every instinct told her not to trust some random teenager with her Ferrari. But what choice did she have? Call a tow truck? Wait hours for the dealership? Miss the meeting that could make or break her next big deal? "If you touch my car," Victoria said slowly, "and you make it worse, I will sue you and your family for every penny you have. Do you understand?" The boy nodded seriously. "Yes, ma'am. I understand. But I promise you I know what I'm doing. My dad, he was a mechanic before he passed away. He taught me that expensive cars aren't scary. They're just built with tighter tolerances. You've got to be careful, pay attention to details, but the principles are the same as any other car." Something in the way he mentioned his father, casual but with an undercurrent of old pain, made Victoria's chest tighten. She pushed the feeling away. "Fine," she said, "but I'm watching everything you do." The boy nodded and moved closer to the engine, his whole demeanor changing. The nervous, apologetic kid disappeared, replaced by someone focused and confident. He leaned over the engine bay, his eyes tracking along hoses and metal components, following the path of different systems. "Can I touch it now?" he asked, looking back at her. "I need to check a few connections." Victoria almost laughed at the absurdity of the question, given how their conversation had started. "Yes, you can touch it." The boy's hands moved carefully over the engine, testing connections, tracing lines. His stained fingers, which had looked so out of place before, now seemed to belong there. He knew exactly where to touch and where not to. "Yep," he said after a moment. "Water pump seal. See this residue here?" He pointed to a spot on the engine block. "That's dried coolant. This has probably been leaking slowly for weeks, maybe a month. Just a tiny bit at a time, so you wouldn't notice it. But today it finally gave out completely." Victoria felt her stomach sink. "So what does that mean?" "It's completely broken." "The seal is shot, yeah," the boy said. You're going to need a new water pump assembly eventually. For a Ferrari, that's not something you can just grab at any parts store. It's a specialized part, probably needs to be ordered from the dealer or a specialty shop. Eventually? Victoria seized on the word. What about right now? I have a meeting in half an hour across town. The boy chewed his lip, thinking, I could do a temporary fix. It won't be perfect, and you'll definitely need to get it properly repaired in the next day or two. But I could get you mobile again, get you to your meeting and back home. How? Victoria asked. What kind of temporary fix? There's an auto parts store about 2 blocks from here, the boy said, already pulling out a beat-up phone from his pocket. They'll have what I need. Basic coolant and some high-temp sealant. I can patch the seal enough to get you through today, refill the coolant system, and you should be good for maybe 50 miles, probably more. But after that, you need to take it to a real Ferrari specialist. Victoria really looked at him. This kid who she'd yelled at, threatened, insulted. This kid who could have walked away when her car started smoking, who would have been totally justified in leaving her to deal with her own problem. Instead, he was offering to help. How long will it take? She asked. 20 minutes, maybe 25, the boy said. 10 to get the parts, 10 to do the fix, 5 to test it and make sure there are no leaks. Victoria checked her watch again. If he was right, she could still make her meeting. Barely. What do you need? The boy was already heading toward the street. Just money for the parts. Maybe $40 should cover it. Victoria pulled out her wallet and handed him 3 $20 bills. Get whatever you need and... She paused, the words feeling strange in her mouth. Thank you. The boy looked surprised, then smiled. A real, genuine smile that made him look even younger. I'll be quick, I promise. And then he was jogging away, dodging between parked cars and heading toward the auto parts store. Victoria stood there next to her smoking Ferrari, watching him go. Around her, some of the people who'd been recording earlier were drifting away, their attention spans exhausted. A few were still watching, curious to see what would happen next. She thought about calling her assistant to push the meeting back just in case, but something stopped her. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was a strange, unexpected trust in this kid whose name she still didn't even know. The vapor from under the hood was starting to thin out as the engine cooled. Victoria leaned against the side of her car, careful not to touch anywhere that might still be hot, and waited. For the first time in a very long time, her perfect, controlled afternoon had spun completely out of her hands. And surprisingly, she wasn't panicking. Instead, she found herself thinking about the boy's hands stained with honest work, about how he'd looked at her car not with envy or resentment, but with pure appreciation for the engineering, about how she'd immediately assumed the worst of him, based on nothing but his appearance and age. Victoria pulled out her phone and finally sent that text to her assistant. Running 15 min late. Start without me if needed. Then she settled in to wait, hoping that her snap judgment about this kid being trouble was as wrong as it was starting to feel. Victoria watched the boy disappear around the corner, and suddenly felt very exposed standing there next to her expensive car, with its hood up and steam still drifting lazily into the air. A few people were still watching from a distance, probably hoping for something dramatic to happen. She pulled out her phone and pretended to be busy with emails, anything to avoid the stares. The minutes crawled by. Victoria checked her watch what felt like every 30 seconds. 5 minutes passed, then 7, then 10. She started to wonder if maybe the kid had just taken her $60 and ran. It wouldn't be the first time someone had scammed her, though usually people who tried to cheat her wore expensive suits and worked in offices, not worn-out sneakers and grease-stained shirts. She was just starting to pull up the number for a tow truck when she saw him jogging back, a plastic shopping bag swinging from one hand. He wasn't even out of breath, which made Victoria feel suddenly aware of her own age and the fact that she hadn't been to the gym in 3 months. Sorry, took a bit longer than I thought, the boy said, setting the bag down carefully on the ground. They had the coolant, but I had to wait for someone to get the good sealant from the back. The stuff they keep on the shelf isn't rated for the temperatures your engine runs at. Victoria blinked. You made them get something from the back? Well, yeah, the boy said, like it was obvious. I mean, I could have used the regular stuff, but it might not hold. Your engine runs hotter than most cars because of the twin turbos. I figured you'd rather wait an extra 3 minutes than have the patch fail on your way to your meeting. Something twisted in Victoria's chest. This kid, who she'd screamed at and threatened, was thinking about the quality of the repair. making sure it would actually work instead of just slapping something together and hoping for the best. Right, she said quietly. Thank you for that. The boy pulled items out of the bag. 2 bottles of bright green coolant, a small container of what looked like putty, and some rags. Okay, so this is going to take a few steps. First, I need to drain what's left of the contaminated coolant. Then I'll clean the area around the seal, apply the sealant, let it set for a few minutes, and then refill the system. After that, we'll start the engine and I'll check for any leaks. You really know what you're doing, Victoria said, and it wasn't a question anymore. The boy smiled, a little shy. My dad used to say that if you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it at all. Even if it's just a temporary fix, it should be the best temporary fix you can manage. There was that mention of his father again. Victoria wanted to ask about it, but the boy was already getting to work, so she stayed quiet and watched. He moved with a kind of practiced ease that reminded Victoria of the way she felt when she was closing a real estate deal. That feeling of being exactly where you belonged, doing exactly what you were meant to do. His hands, despite their young appearance and the grease stains, moved with precision. He wasn't rough or careless. Every motion was deliberate. Can you hand me that rag? The boy asked, pointing without looking up. Victoria picked up one of the clean rags and handed it to him. She felt oddly like a surgical nurse passing instruments to a doctor. Your dad, she found herself saying. He taught you all this? The boy nodded, using the rag to wipe away residue from around the water pump. Yeah, he had his own shop when I was little. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bay garage in a not-so-great part of town. But he loved it. He'd let me hang around after school and he'd explain everything he was doing. Why he was doing it that way, what would happen if he did it wrong. Sounds like he was a good teacher, Victoria said. The best. The boy's voice got quieter. He used to say that cars don't care who you are or where you come from. They'll run great if you treat them right, and they'll break down if you don't. Same rules for everyone, rich or poor. I think that's why I like working on them. They're honest, you know? Victoria did know, actually. It was one of the things she'd always loved about real estate. A house was worth what someone would pay for it, period. No amount of smooth talking or fancy credentials could change the fundamentals of location, structure, market demand. So what happened? She asked, then immediately regretted it. Sorry, that's too personal. You don't have to answer that. The boy kept working, applying the sealant with careful, steady pressure. No, it's okay. He had a heart attack. Massive one, the doctor said. Happened right there in the shop while he was working on some guy's Camry. He was only 42. I'm so sorry, Victoria said, and meant it. Thanks. The boy set down the sealant and checked his phone for the time. We need to let this cure for about 5 minutes before I add the coolant. So we wait. They stood there together in slightly awkward silence. Victoria wasn't used to just standing around doing nothing. She always had to be moving, doing, accomplishing. But there was something almost peaceful about this forced pause. The sun was still hot overhead, but a slight breeze had picked up, making the heat more bearable. So after your dad passed, Victoria said, because she genuinely wanted to know now, how'd you end up at this Rodriguez auto shop? The boy's face brightened a little. Mr. Rodriguez knew my dad. They weren't close friends or anything, but they'd help each other out sometimes, you know? If one of them needed a special tool or had a question about a tricky job. When my dad died, Mr. Rodriguez came to the funeral. About a month later, he showed up at our apartment and asked my mom if I wanted a job. That was kind of him, Victoria said. It really was, the boy agreed. Mom was working 2 jobs trying to keep up with rent. And I was trying to help, but I was only 15 and nobody wants to hire a 15-year-old for anything good. Mr. Rodriguez, he told me straight up that he couldn't pay me much, but he'd teach me everything he knew. Said my dad was a good mechanic and that talent shouldn't go to waste. The boy checked his phone again. Okay, should be set now. Let me get this coolant in. He opened the first bottle and began carefully pouring the bright green liquid into the reservoir. Victoria watched the level rise, mesmerized by something so simple. This was a world she never dealt with. Her Ferrari got driven to the dealership when the maintenance light came on, and people in clean uniforms took care of everything while she waited in a comfortable lounge with free coffee and Wi-Fi. Mr. Rodriguez sounds like a good person, Victoria said. He really is. The boy opened the second bottle. He's tough, though. Doesn't let me slack off or cut corners. If I do something wrong, he makes me do it over until I get it right. But he's teaching me things most people don't learn until they go to technical school. Advanced diagnostics, electrical systems, even some body work. Is that what you want to do? Victoria asked. Be a mechanic? The boy paused in his pouring, and for the first time looked uncertain. I mean, I love working on cars. I really do. But I want to design them, you know? I want to be on the engineering side. Figure out how to make engines more efficient, more powerful, better for the environment. All of that. That requires college, Victoria said. Engineering degree, probably. Yeah. The boy's voice went flat. That's the plan. Community college first because that's what we can maybe afford. Then transfer to a state school if I can get scholarships. Mr. Rodriguez has been helping me save every penny I make. Victoria heard what he wasn't saying. That it would be hard. That he'd have to work full-time while going to school. That even with scholarships it might not be enough. That kids from families with money didn't have to choose between eating and taking an extra class. The boy finished pouring and capped the reservoir. Okay, so now comes the moment of truth. I'm going to start the engine and let it idle. I need you to watch that gauge on your dashboard, the one that shows engine temperature. If it starts climbing toward the red, tell me immediately and I'll shut it off. Okay, Victoria said, feeling suddenly nervous. What should it do normally? It should stay right in the middle of the gauge, the boy explained. Maybe drift up slightly since we're not moving and there's no airflow, but it should stabilize. If my repair worked, the coolant will circulate, keep everything at the right temperature, and we'll be good to go. Victoria slid into the driver's seat, very aware of the boy watching her carefully. She turned the key and the engine roared to life with that distinctive Ferrari growl that usually made her smile. Today it just made her nervous. How's the gauge? The boy called out. It's rising, Victoria said, watching the needle climb. Is that bad? No, that's normal. It was cold, now it's warming up. Just watch where it stops. The needle kept climbing. Victoria's hands tightened on the steering wheel. It passed the quarter mark, then kept going. Halfway. Still climbing. It's still going up, Victoria said, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. The boy had his head under the hood, watching something intently. That's okay. It's supposed to. Just tell me if it gets near the red. The needle slowed as it approached the middle of the gauge, slowed more, then stopped, right in the center, exactly where the boy said it should be. It stopped, Victoria called out, right in the middle. Perfect. The boy's voice was triumphant. Let it run for another minute, make sure it stays steady. Victoria sat there with the engine rumbling, watching that gauge like her life depended on it. The needle didn't budge. After what felt like an hour but was probably only 60 seconds, the boy appeared at her window. Okay, I checked everything under there. No leaks, no drips, pressure looks good. You should be all set. Victoria turned off the engine and got out, looking at the boy with new eyes. It's really fixed? Temporarily fixed, the boy corrected. Don't forget that part. This will get you where you need to go today. Probably tomorrow too if you need it. But Monday at the latest you need to take it to a Ferrari specialist and have them replace the water pump properly. This sealant isn't meant to last forever. Monday, Victoria repeated. I can do that. She checked her watch and felt her stomach drop. Oh no. I've got 12 minutes to get across town. You'll make it, the boy said, already gathering up the empty coolant bottles and putting them back in the plastic bag. Traffic should be light this time of day. Just remember, drive normal. Don't push it too hard until you get the real repair done. He closed the hood with a solid thunk, then stepped back, wiping his hands on the rag. Victoria noticed that the grease stains on his fingers were now mixed with bright green coolant residue. His t-shirt had a new stain on it too. Wait, Victoria said, reaching for her purse. I need to pay you. For your time, your expertise. The parts only cost $40, but your work is worth... No payment, the boy said firmly, shaking his head. Really, ma'am. I was happy to help. That's ridiculous, Victoria said, pulling out her wallet. You spent almost half an hour fixing my car. You saved me from missing a hugely important meeting. Let me give you something. The boy took a step back, his hands up. My dad always said that knowledge is only valuable if you share it. You needed help, I had the skills to help, so I did. That's what you're supposed to do. Victoria stood there with her wallet open, completely thrown off balance. In her world, everyone had an angle. Everyone wanted something. Free help didn't exist, it was just help where the bill came later. At least let me buy you dinner, Victoria said. Or give you a recommendation for college applications or something. The boy smiled, and it was that genuine smile again. The one that made him look even younger. Just drive safe, okay? And get that water pump fixed properly. That's all I need." He started to turn away, and Victoria felt something like panic. This kid had helped her, really helped her, asking nothing in return. And she'd started their interaction by yelling at him, threatening him, judging him based on his clothes and his age. "Wait," she called out. "What's your name?" "I don't even know your name." The boy turned back. "It's Tyler, ma'am." "Tyler," Victoria repeated. "I'm Victoria. And Tyler, I was wrong before. The way I spoke to you, the things I assumed. I'm sorry." Tyler looked surprised, then nodded slowly. "It's okay. People judge by what they see. I get it." "That doesn't make it right," Victoria said. She pulled out one of her business cards, the expensive ones with the embossed lettering, and held it out. "If you ever need anything, a reference, advice, even just someone to talk to about college applications, call me." Tyler took the card, studied it for a moment, then looked up at her with something like hope in his eyes. "You really mean that?" "I do," Victoria said, and realized she absolutely did. "You've got talent, Tyler, real talent. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't make it in engineering just because of where you started." Tyler carefully put the card in his pocket. "Thank you, Ms. Victoria, that means a lot." "Thank you," Victoria said, "really. You saved my day." Tyler gave her a little wave, picked up his shopping bag with the empty bottles, and started walking back toward wherever he'd come from. Victoria watched him go. This kid who'd shown her more kindness and skill in 30 minutes than most people showed her in a year. She got back in her Ferrari, started the engine, which purred perfectly now, and pulled out of the parking spot. As she drove toward her meeting, she kept thinking about Tyler's hands stained with work, about his father who'd taught him that cars were honest, about Mr. Rodriguez who'd given a grieving kid a chance, about how close she'd come to calling security on someone who'd ended up saving her entire afternoon. The temperature gauge stayed right in the middle. The whole drive across town, Tyler's temporary fix held perfectly. Victoria made it to her meeting with 3 minutes to spare, landed the investors, and closed the deal that would take her business to the next level. But for the first time in her career, the successful deal wasn't what she kept thinking about on the drive home. She kept thinking about a 17-year-old kid with dreams of engineering school and the kindness to help a stranger who'd treated him terribly. And she kept thinking about that business card in Tyler's pocket and hoping he'd actually use it. The weekend passed in a blur of paperwork and celebration dinners with her business partners, but Victoria couldn't stop thinking about Tyler. She'd kept her word and called the Ferrari dealership first thing Monday morning, scheduling the water pump replacement for that afternoon. The service advisor had been impressed when she'd accurately described the problem, and Victoria had felt an odd sense of pride explaining that a young mechanic had diagnosed it. As she drove to the dealership, the temporary fix still holding perfectly, Victoria made a decision. She pulled into a strip mall parking lot and opened her laptop. 20 minutes later, she'd made 3 phone calls and sent 5 emails to people she knew on the board of trustees at the state university. By Tuesday afternoon, she had responses. Most were polite but non-committal, the usual "we'll keep an eye out for his application" type of messages that meant nothing. But one email stood out. Dr. Patricia Chen, the dean of the engineering school, had written back personally. "Victoria, any young person with the work ethic and practical skills you describe deserves consideration. Have him contact my office directly. We have several scholarship programs specifically for students from disadvantaged backgrounds who show exceptional promise in STEM fields. No guarantees, but I'd like to meet him." Victoria read the email 3 times, then forwarded it to herself on her phone. Now she just had to hope that Tyler would actually call her. 3 days passed, then 4. Victoria found herself checking her phone more often than usual, feeling disappointed each time Tyler's name didn't appear. Maybe he'd lost her card. Maybe he thought she'd just been being polite and didn't actually mean it. Maybe he'd decided he didn't need help from someone who'd treated him so badly at first. On Friday evening, as Victoria was leaving her office, her phone finally rang with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, thinking it was probably a spam call, but something made her pick up. "Hello, Ms. Victoria." The voice was young and uncertain. "This is Tyler from the parking lot. With the Ferrari?" Victoria felt a smile spread across her face. "Tyler, I'm so glad you called. I was starting to think you'd thrown away my card." "No, ma'am. I kept it, He paused. "I wasn't sure if you really meant it. You know about calling." "I meant it," Victoria said firmly. "In fact, I have something for you." Are you free tomorrow? Maybe for coffee or lunch? There was a long silence. I work at the shop on Saturdays. We're open until 6. What about after? Say 6:30? Another pause. I could do that. But Ms. Victoria, I don't want you to feel like you owe me anything. The car thing, that was just me helping out. I know, Victoria said. But this isn't about owing. This is about opportunity. Just trust me, okay? There's a cafe called The Grinding Halt on 7th Street. Do you know it? I can find it, Tyler said. 6:30 tomorrow, Victoria confirmed. And Tyler? Bring your school records, transcripts, any test scores, recommendation letters if you have them. Why? Tyler's voice had gone cautious. Just trust me, Victoria repeated. Please. After a moment, Tyler agreed and hung up. Victoria stood there in the parking garage, holding her phone and feeling more excited about a meeting than she had in months. And this wasn't even about a deal or a property or money. This was about something that felt more important, though she couldn't quite explain why. Saturday evening came with the kind of perfect spring weather that made everything feel possible. Victoria arrived at the Grinding Halt 15 minutes early, ordered 2 coffees, and claimed a quiet table in the corner. She spread out the papers she'd brought, information packets about the university's engineering program, scholarship applications, and the printed email from Dr. Chen. Tyler showed up at 6:35, looking nervous and out of place in his work clothes. He'd clearly tried to clean up, but there were still traces of grease under his fingernails and a fresh oil stain on his jeans. He clutched a manila envelope against his chest like it was a life preserver. Sorry, I'm late, he said, sliding into the chair across from her. Customer came in right at closing with an emergency. It's fine, Victoria said, pushing one of the coffees toward him. I got you a regular coffee. I didn't know how you'd take it, so there's cream and sugar right there. Tyler looked at the coffee like he wasn't sure what to do with it, then carefully added 2 sugars and a splash of cream. His hands were shaking slightly. You okay? Victoria asked gently. Just nervous, Tyler admitted. I've never really done anything like this before. Like what? Had someone important want to help me? Tyler stirred his coffee, not meeting her eyes. Usually people like you don't notice people like me. Or if they do, it's to tell us we're in the way. The words stung because they were true. Victoria thought about that day in the parking lot. How quick she'd been to judge, to assume the worst. I'm sorry for that. For how I treated you. Tyler looked up, surprised. You already apologized. I know. But I'm apologizing again because I keep thinking about it. About how many other people I've dismissed or ignored because they didn't look like they belonged in my world. Victoria leaned forward. Tyler, you taught me something important that day. You want to know what it was? Tyler nodded slowly. That skill and character have nothing to do with money or appearance. You're 17 years old and you diagnosed and fixed a problem on a $200,000 car that my own dealership would have charged me $3,000 to repair. You did it with $40 of parts and knowledge you learned from your father and Mr. Rodriguez. That's extraordinary. Tyler's face went red. It wasn't that big a deal. It was to me, Victoria said. And more than that, you did it after I'd been horrible to you. You could have walked away. You could have let me suffer the consequences of my own rudeness, but you helped anyway. My dad always said, I know. Victoria interrupted gently. That knowledge is only valuable if you share it. Tyler, your father sounds like he was a wise man, and I think he'd be incredibly proud of the young man you've become. Tyler's eyes got shiny, and he blinked rapidly, looking away. Thank you, he said quietly. Victoria gave him a moment to collect himself, taking a sip of her own coffee. When Tyler looked back at her, she pushed the papers across the table. Okay, let's talk about your future. Did you bring your school records? Tyler opened the manila envelope and pulled out several sheets of paper, handing them over almost reluctantly. Victoria spread them out and felt her eyebrows rise. Tyler's grades were exceptional. Not just good, but outstanding. Advanced math courses, physics, chemistry, all A's. His GPA was nearly perfect. Tyler, Victoria said slowly, why are you planning on community college? With these grades, you could apply directly to top schools. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Those schools cost like $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Even with scholarships, I'd need to take out massive loans, and I'd have to quit my job to attend full-time, which means my mom would be struggling even more. Community college is $8,000 a year, and I can work while I go. Victoria felt that twist in her chest again, the one that reminded her how unfair life could be. Kids with half Tyler's talent cruised into expensive universities because their parents could write checks. Tyler, brilliant and hardworking, was planning to take the long, hard road because it was the only one he could afford. What if there was another option? Victoria asked. Tyler looked skeptical. Like what? Victoria pulled out the email from Dr. Chen and slid it across the table. Read this. Tyler's eyes scanned the message, growing wider with each line. When he finished, he looked up at Victoria with an expression she couldn't quite read. Hope mixed with disbelief, maybe. This is real? He asked. Very real. Dr. Patricia Chen is one of the most respected engineering educators in the state, and she wants to meet you. But I haven't even applied to the university. The application deadline was months ago. There are always exceptions for exceptional candidates, Victoria said. The scholarship she's talking about, it's called the Pioneer Program. Full tuition, plus a stipend for living expenses and books. They only give out 5 per year, and they're incredibly competitive. Tyler set the paper down like it might burn him. Ms. Victoria, kids who get scholarships like that, they're not kids like me. They're the ones who built robots or won science fairs or started their own companies in high school. You've been working as a mechanic since you were 15, Victoria pointed out. You've learned skills that most engineering students don't learn until their junior or senior year. You diagnosed a complex problem in a high-performance vehicle in under 2 minutes. Tyler, you are exactly the kind of kid who deserves this. But what if I'm not good enough? The question came out small and scared, and Victoria realized she was seeing past Tyler's confident exterior to the frightened kid underneath. The kid who'd lost his father. The kid who worked 40 hours a week while maintaining perfect grades. The kid who probably never let himself believe that good things could actually happen to him. What if you are? Victoria countered. What if you're better than good enough? What if you're extraordinary, and the only thing holding you back is fear? Tyler was quiet for a long moment, staring at the email. Finally, he said, Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Victoria had been asking herself the same question for days. The easy answer was guilt, wanting to make up for how she'd treated him. But it was more than that. When I was 23, Victoria said slowly, I had a business idea. Real estate investment, but with a twist. I wanted to focus on renovating properties in overlooked neighborhoods, places where other investors wouldn't look. I had the vision, the work ethic, even some money saved up. But I had no connections, no credibility, no one who believed in me. Tyler leaned forward, listening. I pitched my idea to 17 different investors. Every single one turned me down. Most of them barely let me finish talking. They saw a young woman with no experience and no family money, and they didn't see potential. They saw someone not worth their time. Victoria smiled sadly at the memory. Number 18 was a man named Richard Foster. He was this older gentleman, semi-retired, and I honestly think he only took the meeting because his secretary felt sorry for me. What happened? Tyler asked. He listened to my entire pitch. Asked questions, real questions, not the dismissive kind. And at the end, he said something I'll never forget. He said, Victoria, I don't invest in business plans. I invest in people. And you're the kind of person who won't quit until you succeed. He wrote me a check for $50,000 on the spot. That's amazing, Tyler said. It changed my life, Victoria agreed. Within 5 years, I'd paid him back triple. Within 10, I was making more in a year than he'd given me to start. But here's the thing, Tyler. Richard Foster had no logical reason to believe in me. He just chose to. He saw something in me that I couldn't even see in myself yet. Understanding dawned on Tyler's face. And you want to be that person for me. I want to give you the chance that someone once gave me, Victoria said. I can't promise you'll get the scholarship. I can't promise anything except that I'll help you put together the best possible application and that Dr. Chen will give you a fair shot. The rest is up to you. Tyler picked up the email again, reading it one more time. When he looked back at Victoria, the fear was still there, but so was something else. Determination. Okay, he said. Tell me what I need to do. For the next 2 hours, they worked through scholarship applications, essay questions, and strategy. Victoria learned that Tyler wanted to specialize in sustainable engine design, finding ways to make cars more efficient without sacrificing performance. She learned that he spent his free time reading engineering journals from the library and watching lectures online from MIT and Stanford. She learned that his mother worked 2 jobs as a home health aide, that Tyler had a younger sister in middle school who he helped with homework every night, and that despite everything they'd been through, his family was close and supportive. Tyler, in turn, learned that Victoria had grown up in a small town with parents who thought her business ambitions were foolish, that she'd worked 3 jobs to save up her initial investment money, that she still remembered every person who'd told her she'd fail, and that their doubt had fueled her success. "You know what's funny?" Tyler said as they were packing up the papers. "That day in the parking lot, I thought you were just another rich person who looked down on people like me. But you're not that at all." "I was that day," Victoria said honestly. "But you helped me see better. Sometimes we need someone to hold up a mirror and show us who we've become versus who we want to be." Tyler stood up, carefully sliding the application materials back into his envelope. "Ms. Victoria, I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Victoria said with a smile. "Thank me when you're accepting your diploma from the engineering school. And Tyler, when you're designing engines for Ferrari someday, remember this. Remember that someone saw potential in you and gave you a chance. And then do the same for someone else." Tyler nodded seriously. "I will, I promise." As Victoria drove home that night, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Tyler. "Got home and told my mom everything. She cried for 10 minutes. Thank you for believing in me. I won't let you down." Victoria read the message 3 times, feeling tears prick at her own eyes. She typed back, "You could never let me down. You already showed me who you are. Now go show the rest of the world." She thought about Richard Foster, the man who'd believed in her when no one else would. He'd passed away 5 years ago, and Victoria had never gotten to fully express how much his faith in her had meant. But maybe this was how she could pay it forward. Maybe this was how kindness rippled outward, changing lives in ways you could never predict. A kid touching a Ferrari had led to this moment, had led to a brilliant young man getting a shot at his dreams, had led to Victoria remembering why she'd gotten into business in the first place, not just to make money but to create opportunities and change lives. Sometimes the universe worked in strange ways, and sometimes the best investments you could make had nothing to do with money at all. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind. Victoria found herself spending hours on the phone with Tyler, helping him craft his scholarship essays, practice for his interview with Dr. Chen, and navigate the complicated university application process. She'd forgotten how much paperwork was involved in applying to college, how many hoops you had to jump through just to get a chance. What surprised her most was how much she enjoyed it. After years of focusing solely on business deals and property investments, helping Tyler felt different, more meaningful somehow. She'd wake up checking her phone for his questions, go to sleep thinking about how to best present his experiences in a way that would impress the scholarship committee. Her business partner, Richard's son David, who'd taken over after his father passed, noticed the change. "You seem different lately," he said one afternoon as they reviewed quarterly reports. "Happier maybe, less stressed?" Victoria had smiled. "I'm helping a kid apply for college, a really brilliant kid who deserves a shot." David had raised his eyebrows but didn't push for details. Victoria was grateful. She wasn't entirely sure she could explain why this mattered so much to her without it sounding like she was just trying to assuage her guilt, though maybe that was part of it. Maybe that was okay. The interview with Dr. Chen was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Victoria had offered to drive Tyler to the campus, but he'd insisted on taking the bus. "I need to do some of this on my own," he'd said, and Victoria had understood. This was his journey. She was just opening a door. But on Thursday morning, her phone rang at 7:30. Tyler's number. "Ms. Victoria?" His voice was panicked. "I have a huge problem." Victoria's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "The bus route to the university. There's construction. They've detoured it, and now instead of getting there at 1:30 like I planned, I won't arrive until 2:45. I tried calling the engineering office, but no one's answering yet. They open at 9. Victoria was already grabbing her car keys. "What time do you need to leave the shop?" "I was going to leave at noon. Mr. Rodriguez is covering for me." "I'll pick you up at 11:30, Victoria said. "That'll give us plenty of time, even with traffic." "Ms. Victoria, you don't have to." "Tyler, let me do this. Please. You've worked too hard to be late because of a bus detour. There was a pause, then a relieved exhale. Thank you. Really, I'll be ready. Victoria cleared her afternoon schedule, telling her assistant she had an important personal matter to attend to. She spent the morning trying to focus on work, but mostly just watching the clock. At 11, she gave up and headed to Rodriguez Auto Shop. She'd never been to Tyler's workplace before. The shop was in an older part of town, wedged between a laundromat and a payday loan place. The building itself had seen better days, with faded paint and a hand-painted sign that read, Rodriguez Auto Repair, honest work, fair prices. 3 garage bays stood open, and Victoria could see cars in various stages of repair. She parked on the street and walked into the small waiting area. It was clean but worn, with mismatched chairs and outdated magazines. A bell above the door chimed, and a man emerged from the back, wiping his hands on a rag. He was probably in his 50s, with silver threading through his dark hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Can I help you?" he asked with a slight accent. "I'm Victoria. I'm here to pick up Tyler for his university interview." The man's face lit up with recognition and warmth. "Ah, Ms. Victoria, Tyler has told me so much about you. I'm Carlos Rodriguez." He extended a hand and Victoria shook it, feeling the calluses that came from years of hard work. "It's so nice to meet you," Victoria said. "Tyler talks about you all the time. He says you're an amazing teacher." Carlos waved this away modestly. "Tyler makes it easy. That boy, he has a gift, a real gift. I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never seen anyone pick things up as fast as he does." His expression grew more serious. "What you're doing for him, helping with this scholarship, it means everything. His mother, she called me crying last week. Happy tears, you understand?" Victoria felt her throat tighten. "Tyler's the one doing the work. I'm just helping him navigate the system." "Sometimes that's what people need most," Carlos said. "Someone who knows the system, who can open doors. Tyler's father, my friend Daniel, he would be so grateful for what you're doing." Before Victoria could respond, Tyler emerged from one of the garage bays. He'd clearly tried to clean up, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt that looked new. His hair was neatly combed and his hands were scrubbed clean, though Victoria could still see faint traces of grease in the nail beds. He carried a folder and looked terrified. "Ready?" Victoria asked gently. Tyler nodded, then turned to Carlos. "Thanks for letting me leave early, Mr. Rodriguez. You go show them what you're made of," Carlos said, gripping Tyler's shoulder. "Make your father proud." "I'll try," Tyler said quietly. The drive to the university took 40 minutes.